And I'm going to start off by testing your powers of observation. So the way you can unmute yourself. What potential problems do you see with this picture? Let's go ahead and shout them out there. I can't see all your hands or anything, so.
He's petting the tree on which he's laying on.
Yes, that is not a very good idea. So very good. We see a potential problem there. All right, let's look at another, whoop, wrong way. What potential problem do you see with this picture? Can you imagine the first guy having to slam on the brakes fast? What? Not good. No, not good. Or what about this picture? Having a trampoline on the top of a skyrise. What could go wrong? Yeah, that kind of aspect. So those are just some things we look at and we say, there could be problems here. What I want to do next is to think about when we're in ministry, whether it be missions, whether overseas or in cultures or whatnot, what problems can we see? And I'm going to stop for the moment. I do want to see, I want to hear, what problems do you see as a potential with missions or being involved in full-time ministry?
Burnout.
Burnout, one very big one. What else?
Between many tasks, to lose the focus on your main mission.
Okay, to keep focused.
Will the strategy work in the place that I'm ministering?
Okay, how will that strategy? Anything else? You guys have been involved, a lot of you have been involved in ministry for a while, so you've seen some of these problems and with that going on. So we're going to go back to this. Oops, where was I? I'm going to talk a little bit about Michelle and I. We're going to go here from the current side. There we go. When Michelle and we came to Uganda, that was 10 years ago. We had been involved in ministry for about 18 years, being a pastor in the States. But then we followed God's call onto the mission field. And we began to see immediately a lot of problems. Again, just observing the same way that with the pictures, began to see problems both within that we were facing and that a lot of other missionaries were facing. And so I want to just address quickly some of these problems, and then we'll talk a little bit about them that we see. The first problem we saw is that spirituality doesn't just happen. I remember my first overseas missions trip to Africa, and how disappointed I was that after I got there, that I didn't just become a more spiritual person, that I was actually the same person with the same faults as I was before. Spirituality doesn't just happen. And we see that on the field. Just because you're involved in ministry doesn't automatically make you a more spiritual person. Second problem, life can be hard on the field, whether that's where you've been a foreign field or where you are. Ministry has its ups. There are good times and things can go well, but there are also times when you're going to be asking yourself, and you probably already have, why am I here? I don't want to be here. This is hard. And so we see one of the main problems we see of our missionaries is depression. We see that in a lot of our folks that are struggling with the downtimes and getting through that. So that's another one of our big problems. Another big one. Can anyone give a guess about what is the main reason why missionaries leave the field prematurely? And indeed, as you probably guessed from that, it's because of not being able to get along with other missionaries. I'm sorry, go ahead, Fernando.
No, the SMART book talks about that a lot.
And we've seen that, which is, is in one way surprising. I think most people are surprised by that. That shouldn't. Part of it is because of our expectations. We often come to the field thinking that other missionaries, that since they're godly people and they're going to be excited about me and my ministry and what I'm doing, and we're all just going to, sing around kumbaya and get along great. But That doesn't always work that way. Other problem with that is that even if we're both even if we're both godly centered and trying to do it, the fact is we don't see things the same way. We can be in the same situation and you may see it one way and I may see it another. And it isn't necessarily that it's right and wrong. And also our strategies. Fernando, you talked about strategies. What's going to work? Well, we don't always agree on what strategies work, what we should do, how should we try. And so even very well-intentioned people, usually missionaries tend to be passionate people and strong-willed people, or they wouldn't be on the field. And that can lead to conflict. All right, and the fourth problem is that our missionaries tend to be overworked. Another thing we see with our missionaries is, well, guilt comes in because they're always feeling they've got to be doing, they've got to be more. That overworkedness can come from, one, it can come from the inner feelings that we have this idea of what someone in ministry should look like. They should always be loving, they should always be giving, they should always be doing. And so there's this inner pressure to be this guiding light out in the world of darkness. And if we don't fit up to that, if we don't live up to that, we struggle. And guilt is, along with depression, those are probably our two biggest struggles that we see in our missionaries, that they don't live up to being the person or the missionary they're supposed to be. Those pressures also come from the outside, your supporters, the feeling of pressure that you need to be doing, that you ought to be out always doing ministry. They're giving money, and whether they express that or we just feel it, there's pressure. And there's also pressure from the people we serve. They're going to have all kinds of ideas of how you ought to be using your time, how you ought to be using your money, and the opportunities are going to abound, which can be good, but it can also be overwhelming, and it can really burn out our missionaries when they are driven by opportunity or driven by what potential's there. Okay, so that is some of our problems. And what I like to stop there is I'd like to stop for a moment for any questions or comments about, as we were talking about some of the problems that you have already seen or that you would like to share a little bit. What are some of the problems you've run into in ministry? Go ahead, anybody there. If you're,
Draghi?
Yes.
there you go.
I remember for first time when I went in Bulgaria, it was such a big change, and it was hard to understand Bulgarian language and to fit in the culture, because it was so different than Macedonia. And I was feeling that people are offending to me all the time. But then as I learned the language, I fit much better, and you are more accepted, and I don't know, you then as the time goes, you feel it like your home, your place. That's your yeah. But the first 5-6 months, it's a huge struggle.
Yes, it is. Excellent, thank you. What other problems have you guys encountered with ministry? Yeah.
For me, it have been probably most of them. I've experienced them or seen them, but it was very interesting, the picture of the two animals, and to have two people who are filled with the Spirit. They are saved. We are all Christians in a ministry. And we all try to look at God's face and following Him. And however, sometimes it might be looking at totally different directions. And making this middle place and negotiating has been a great challenge for me sometimes.
Amen. Amen. That's one of the big challenges for a lot of our folks. Yeah, Fernando.
I think that one important situation is to balance the ministry and the family in terms of we can talk about spiritual life and ministry, and but also I would say something that I never thought that much before until it happened to me was how careful are you to balance your ministry energy and pouring to the ministry and pouring to your family, which is not something that sometimes you believe you are doing well, you think you're balancing, but not paying attention much to the needs of your family, even when you are giving to them time and whatever provision. But there are some specific needs that are hidden that we don't see. And in ministry, sometimes we do see because we are way more focused and we see a lot of the little things that we need to do, but we don't see that little details that can damage and even destroy your family. So I think it's a very hard thing that can happen many times, is how is your family doing in every aspect, and how is the ministry and how you are doing, this balance to keep healthy. It's a struggle. It was for me, it is for many people that is in the field. So
Yes, it's a big one. In fact, our first stepping into member care involved, within the first 6 months after coming, I had 2 missionary families who came to us and said, will you do marriage counseling with us? And it's for just that very reason, that kind of aspect. And so we're going to address that now as we look at, there we go, our answers. How do we address these problems with missionary care? And so that's what we're trying to have developed, a team to try to address these very problems that we've been talking about. Our goal for missionary care is that you guys thrive on the field, both family, personal, ministry, but we're not going to generally tell, especially missionary care, it's not going to be our job to tell you how to do your ministry. Our main goal is to support you and encourage you with that. So let me first tell you, we are a team. We have a team that are put together that are working at trying to be there, and their main goal is how can we encourage our missionaries and point them in the right direction. We also have a model we call a missionary care model. This isn't something that we came up with just on our own. It's called Best Missionary Care Practice, or something close to that, that we've kind of taken and adjusted a little bit to us. And so this is kind of our aim. We're going to share with you a little bit about what our aim in missionary care is about. And for us, we understand that missionary care begins with this actually thing doing what I'm telling it to. There we go. It starts with you. We do have a team. We are going to try to work with you, but it really is going to be, it begins with you and you working on your relationship with the Lord. That's at the very heart of what's going to keep you where we're going. And it's going to be your number one focus, whether you're on the field, wherever you are, is not the ministry. It's not how well you do. It's not how many people you win. Your number one goal is to walk with the Lord. And that is the crucial aspect. And we're always going to be encouraging you to come back to that. And which that involves, we're going to be encouraging you, spending time in the Word, spending time in prayer. And not just for ministry, but for your own personal walk, that it is your master. The Lord is what's going to be the most important for your longevity, and spending time in meaningful worship. And what I mean meaningful, a lot of us are involved in ministry and we may be involved in worship, but sometimes it's more us giving out, us trying to minister to others, rather than it's speaking to our own hearts. And as missionaries, ministry people, we need to be involved in worship that speaks to us as well. It may not be on Sunday. As a pastor, that wasn't necessarily what spoke to me when I was preaching. I needed to find other type of worship that can actually speak to who I am. And so you're going to have to be able to feed your souls as well as feeding others. And the last one there is probably one of the more crucial ones that we don't often talk about. In fact, study shows this is what's probably the biggest factor on you remaining in ministry, and that is keeping in mind your calling. Calling is extremely important in ministry. If you're out there because you think it's a good idea or because others think you ought to be there, if you're out there to be for results, that you're going to win people, you're going to change the world, those aren't bad, but you won't last, because you will run into times where you aren't touching people and that you're not seeing anything good happen. And if you don't have a sense of God, that God has called you to this particular thing, we have seen it many times. People, will often give up because they don't. That which was feeding them in their ministry is dried up, and so working on understanding your calling. It also is important to keep you, but it keeps you from being overworked. I think it was Alina that mentioned that with us, that we get a lot of people, and when we visit people and talk with them, they're feeling pressure, they're feeling overworked because they have all these things going on that they're trying to be involved in. And a lot of good things are nice, but if they are robbing you from that which you're called to do, they actually aren't good. They can actually drag away you from being obedient to what God has called you to by trying to be involved in a lot of other good things. And so we're going to be encouraging you, come back to the relationship. Focus on what it is God has called you and where he's leading. Don't be driven by opportunities or guilt. Sometimes we're not sure where that calling should lead us. And that's where we focus rather on the relationship. That's the biggest key we always come back to. It's not what we do, but it's the walking with the Lord. Okay, so number one, working on that relationship and keeping that center. Number two is what we call self-care. This is a picture of someone not practicing self-care. They are doing something that is probably going to lead to injury, not very bright. So, in our missionaries, sometimes we look at what they're doing kind of in the same way and we shake our heads. Number one, Fernando, you pointed to this, making time for family, making time for marriages. It is crucial that for our missionaries. Now, most of you, you're single, okay? So that may not play in right now, but a few years down the road, it probably will. And this is something you're going to have to keep in mind as you come into a family. You cannot do everything you did as a single as a family person. Families are important to God. In fact, when we look at the priorities, when we're going to be talking to people and stuff, number one priority is your relationship with the Lord. That is the most important. Number two is families. Now, it's above others because families fit in the others category, but there are specific commands for families that rise it above, that we need to always keep in mind. Our families are indeed part of our ministry that God expects us to, and like Fernando, you talked about, understanding the needs, understanding what's going on. It is true that if we're in ministry, there are going to be sacrifices. But 1 Corinthians tells us those sacrifices, number one, have to be agreed by both partners. It's not something that one has to say, we need to sacrifice because I think so. It has to be something agreed by both and can only be for a time. We may sacrifice our needs for a bit, but God has said, that's for a time. You take care of those in your family. That is crucial. Okay. Other parts of self-care, personal revival and renewal, and making time for vacation. Come on. There we go. What is it that refreshes you? Again, within ministry, a lot of our people feel they can't be taking time off. They can't be doing hobbies because it's all about the ministry. And we do want people to be involved in ministry, but you have to live. You have to allow yourself to live if you're going to last. And so you need to be understanding what refreshes you. If there is hobbies or whatever it is that speaks to you. Vacation, we go to our missionaries, and most of our missionaries don't take vacation. They feel guilty. They don't feel they can have the time. And we have to affirm them. Vacation is not a break from your ministry. It is a part of your ministry. Because for you to be the kind of person God needs you to be, you have to have breaks, or you end up becoming a person God has a hard time using. So to be effective, to be that, we need you to be taking that time for yourselves. Come on, what's going on here? Wrong thing. We have retreats that we plan, and we try to do them about once every 3 years in areas, but in each area. But you don't have to just be regulated to your area. We want you to plan for them. We want you to budget for them. The main parts of our retreats, they're not for lecture. They're not to train you to how to be a better missionary. They are about refreshing you, restoring, get you away from your ministry. Sometimes you can't really relax until you get away from your ministry around you, because it's always drawing you. So we encourage you to come, relax, spend time, and whatever other areas. We want to make sure you're feeding and caring for yourself. Okay, so that's the first 2 levels of missionary care. Our third level of missionary care, and this is really where we come in. Those first 2, we can encourage you, but it's going to be you who's going to make sure those things happen. Third level is structured care, and it starts off with team support. And when we're talking about team support, we're talking about you guys on the field. Now, like for Blake and for Kat, that would be the team of GSF. For you other guys, other than Fernando, you guys are working together, and it's your team with one another. Not everybody practices team support. This picture is looks like 2 brothers, and they are not caring for each other very well. And what we see is that sometimes our teammates may indeed do this, is they may let something slip, not intending to, that can cause damage and can cause a lot of pain. So we're going to be encouraging you to being good teammates with each other. Now, again, this isn't something we can do for you, but we can train, we can encourage, and we will encourage you. As a member care team, we may also do mediation if it's someone between teams, or try to turn, but really it also comes down to you. We're going to encourage you to choose to be a caring teammate. I can truthfully say that while we were on the field 10 years, I never met a missionary I didn't like. But that's because we chose to like the missionaries we met. Some of them were a bit of a challenge, but we looked for things we could admire. We looked for things that we could say, this is good. And it made it so that we were able to work with people and take slights and not worry about that. You have to choose to be kind, not just to the people around you, but to your teammates. Lower your expectations, increase your grace. And if you are a teammate that's going to care for others, you're going to find they're going to be more open to caring for you as well. Okay. Second part of structured care is indeed more involving our missionary care team. And the first level of that, the first ones we're going to connect you with are your regional care coordinators. These are folks that are, a lot of them are on the field. They are people who have experience. They've been missionaries. They are dealing with them. A number of them are on the field right now, involved in ministry, and are also helping other missionaries. So let me introduce some of them. These are the ones that we're going to want you to know and connect with. Yeah, I'm going to be trying to connect others, but we want you to get to know your regional care coordinators. Right now, I'm serving as a regional care for Africa and for Asia, and as we're trying to recruit other ones. Our job, again, when they come to communicate with you, or when they come to hopefully visit you, if they can, they are not checking up on you to seeing how well you're doing your ministry. They're not seeing if you've been a good missionary, or that's not their goal at all. Our first few visits with our missionaries, they didn't know what to do with us. What are they here for? They checking up? No. Our one goal is to support you, is to pray for you, is to encourage you, is to help you to be able to thrive. And so that's going to be our goal. We're imperfect as well, but we really do want to hear from you. We want to be able to be supporting of you. These are some of the other of our regional cares. This is John and Tammy Rissmiller. They are our U.S. based missionary care. They do a great job communicating, keeping up with people. Don and Lynn King are our Middle East regional care coordinators. They spent a number of years on the field. Right now, they're based on the U.S., but they travel back and forth seeing the people. Dan and Daniel and Sarah Putkamp, they are our Latin America regional care coordinators. They are also still serving there. They have their ministries going along, but they are, along with their own ministry, they're reaching out to the missionaries all around them. So we're very happy for their service. Rhonda Baxter, for those of you, number of you over there in Europe, this is your regional care coordinator is Rhonda Baxter. Some of you already know her, and we're very happy for Rhonda. She served a number of years in Kenya and is reaching out. So we encourage you to connect with Rhonda. We have the James Roberson, who is with our 8 Days of Hope people here in America. We have Cody and Katie Fox. Those of you, Blake and Kat, you already know Cody and Katie. They are our country coordinators country care coordinators in Uganda. And we have a number of people in Uganda, so their focus is there. They have younger children and can't travel so much. So they focus in Uganda. We have the Bridges. They are in Ethiopia, or right now they're here, but that's where their ministry is. And they will be our Ethiopia country coordinators. Those are two of our big countries where we have the gathering of our missionaries. And so they will be working there. You're going to see them at retreats. You're going to see them in other aspects. And they also will be very much interested in helping you, whoever, but especially for those people in their regions. Okay, so those are your regional care coordinators or country care coordinators. Titles we aren't worried about. They're just people who are interested in you and your well-being. We also have what we call missionary care specialists. This is Misty Botkins. Misty isn't tied to one particular area. She's a trained counselor. And so a lot of times she may go to an area for us where there's someone particularly struggling. Misty is also, she does trauma healing, but she also is heading up for our crisis immediate response. If something really bad happens, I'm working with Misty to try to get some of our teammates there within a few days is our goal, to be able to help in different situations. So if something comes along, we want to be able to minister to you as soon as we can and to be able to help in the situation. Sharon Batley works with our logistics. She also does trauma healing, but with our retreats and other things, trying to organize. When you look to go to our retreats, you will probably be hearing from Sharon because she would be the one organizing, trying to get things lined up for that. Leanna Hollis, you may already have been familiar with her. She is in charge of prayer. She does a great job of spending focused time on praying for our missionaries. And there's incredible power with that. So we're very thankful for Leanna. Okay, so that's our missionary care team, but we also have our leadership support. We have, of course, John Darnell, our CEO. And we are especially thankful because John not only was a missionary himself, John and Emily were in Ecuador. I'll let her talk in just a second. But also John, when John came to the home office, he was a part of member care. And so, or missionary care. So he has a passion for that as well. So when you have your leadership have a passion, that really makes it easier for us. And of course, Emily, who is in charge of our missionary care kids, and I'm going to let Emily here just share a little bit, if I can figure out how to make my computer work. Get up here. There we go. Emily, why don't you just share about your heart?
Yeah, missionary care is what brought John and myself back 4 years ago to the home office. And so we are both incredibly passionate about caring for you guys. 4 years ago, none of those people that Bob showed existed in the roles that they were. So that tells you that the Holy Spirit is really up to something. He wants us to be caring for our people, and he wants us to continue to build out that program. Before, it was just one guy who was in charge of the department, and that's a really heavy load to carry. So it's really neat how God has moved in the hearts of a lot of our missionaries who are raising their own support to do this. So my role has kind of shifted and changed over the last couple of years, where we're really needing and seeing the need for kids to have their own advocate here in the home office. So I get the blessing of doing our pre-field training for missionary kids while their parents are going through what you're going through. Myself and Maria Gino, who is down in my corner, both figuratively and literally right now, we get to build out and train the missionary kids. We also help facilitate the retreats. It is not babysitting. We are doing intentional care, kind of like church camp, loving on them, listening to them, and encouraging them. So I'll have to keep in touch with Blake and Kat and just seeing the needs. We're continuing to build out this program. It's huge. We have like a couple hundred kids, you guys, which is amazing, but a huge blessing. And so that's what I get to do.
Thanks, Emily. And Leanna, since you're right here, why don't you just share your heart just a little bit?
I'm glad to. I'm going to be talking to you about prayer in just a few minutes anyway, but we want to pray for you, and we do pray for you, whether we know what your needs are or not. But we believe that prayer is the breath in your ministry, and it invites the Lord to direct. It gives us an opportunity to be in fellowship with the Lord. It connects us to him, but it also allows us to be a part of your ministry. It allows the people who are partners with you to be a part of your ministry. And the truth of the matter is, the prayer partners are the ones doing the really hard work. Even when we're the face at the table, it's the people who are doing the work of prayer who are making that place possible. So we are big on prayer, and we want to pray for you. So we want you to tell us your prayer requests and your needs so we can pray for you and partner with you in that way.
All right. Well, I have a little more to share here, and then we're gonna have a little bit of time, hopefully, of discussion. Just any questions or anything, but let me finish up here. Okay. We also have, of course, Charlene, and Charlene also has a heart for missionary care. She is the, see if I can get this right here. She is the VP of operations. There we go. My boss, or just John and her with that. And, but again, she also has a passion for missionary care. So it makes it a lot easier for us to be able to do that when we have our leadership that are passionate about caring for our missionaries. That's why I love being a part of Global. Okay, so that's our team. We also have what we now call specialist care. Now, these are people who aren't really specifically a part of the missionary care team, but they're like Marcia LaCroix, who is LaCroix, that is our HR department, insurance and other things. The beautiful thing is Marshall has a pastor's heart. He's not just numbers. He has a passion for our missionaries and missionary care. Becky, of course, who is in charge of, you already know, you've been in communication with her, and we are very thankful to have her and her joy and love for our people. Her husband, Greg, who's VP for finance. I'm not sure I got that right, but he's a brilliant guy, and we're very thankful to have him helping us with that and being of support. Marla, you're going to get to know her. She's the favorite of everybody because she's the one who gets you your money. So you're going to get to know her much better. Actually, our whole team here at Global Outreach, they all consider themselves a part of missionary care because that's what they do. Their goal and desire is to help you thrive. And so when you're communicating with any of them, their passion is for you, to help you to thrive. All right, and the last thing for our model is network care. We try to care in many different ways, but we realize that you have needs beyond what we can deal with. We're going to want to do debriefs with you. from time to time. But they're going to be like half-day debriefs or something like that. But sometimes if you've gone through a more traumatic thing, or maybe it's been that you've been coming off the field after being on for a long time, we're going to encourage you to take longer debriefs that are like week long or 2 or 3 even weeks. And so there are organizations who do these that are trained for that. Also counseling. We're not going to try to provide a whole counseling aspect for people, but we're going to try to line up people who you can go to give you referrals to connect with. Fundraising, Becky's working on someone to help with that training. So, and for some of our missionaries who come and are doing furloughs, there are organizations that sometimes will loan out cars or have homes. And so we're going to try to keep a list of these things to help you to line up to connect with them. So of what we can't do, we're going to try to help you find those who can. All right, that comes down then to our time. Questions, comments, anything that you may have about our missionary care team or how we're going about it. I would love to hear from you. Okay, Fernando. Oh,
Oh, okay, Prima.
Thank you. Just wanted to comment that I've never seen an organization with such a big missionary care team, and that's very impressive to me.
Well, we care about you, so we want to see you succeed. Fernando.
Yes, I do agree a lot with that and the focus on the missionary. One question that I have is that normally in organizations, you have a lot of organized structure with titles and people who, they're in charge for this, in charge for that. And I do see you guys have it. I mean, throughout this process that I'm in, I get emails from different people. And when I email someone about something, they make sure they will direct you to the other person that is in charge of that. So I see the structure. But one thing that I don't see, and I wonder how it works, because it seems that it works, and I'm happy that of what I see, is that the missionaries are in the field. We have a lot of people doing a lot of things, and there is no much structure in terms of leadership in in a position that you need to submit or to be accountable to in a daily basis or every month or whatever. What I see is caretaking, and you are there for the people. And the thing is that I wonder is that working, I guess, and how it works without much structure and more relationship? Because I'm just in a dream right now, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I just see this and I say, yeah, that's it, but how it works? Because, I don't see that normally. So can you give me a little more of how can you make an organization work this way in a more relational structure than hierarchical?
I'll give you my view on that and then let John even speak to that for a moment with that. It's because Globals is much different than most organizations, because our goal is not to do a particular type of ministry. We're not like, and again, I'm not speaking against any other missionaries, but like, for instance, those who are doing Bible translation. Okay, their goal is to translate the Bible, and so they're going to plan and have strategies how to achieve that. For global outreach, we don't have a particular ministry we're trying to accomplish. Our goal is to enable you to do what God has called you. So we don't, that's why we aren't looking over your shoulder. We figure you're going to be the expert on what God is calling you to do. So we don't have to have an organized structure that looks over your shoulder to see if you're doing what you're doing. There may be some things, if we see some things that are going, that we think are time bombs, that maybe, are really something to be afraid of for your sake, we may speak into that, but that's not our main focus. Our main focus is to allow you to work as God has called you. So we're not going to tell you how to do that. There's some drawbacks. That means you have to figure it out. That means we're not going to be there to give you all the answers. We may try to have some coaching or here and there, but you're going to have to be the one who's seeking the Lord with that. So there is some drawback with that. You don't have someone who's going to give you all the answers. But our job, it does mean that we don't have to have a whole hierarchy of telling you what to do. Our job is just to help you follow. John, you got anything else you want to address with that?
No, I think that's well said. I was on a conversation last week with a training organization. They don't have missionaries, they just train. And I was talking about this very topic. And I said, how do we talk about ourselves in a way that makes sense to donors? Because it's not like the calendars on my wall that I think I showed you guys last time, the airplane calendars. We're airplanes. We do this. This is our strategy. Get to this strategy. Instead, it's people. And, I think it takes some humility on our part and on your part too, for us to come together and say, hey, we don't have it figured out how it's going to work in Spain, Bulgaria, Macedonia, Uganda, wherever that is. But we trust you and trust that God can use it. And it's an exciting thing for us to see what you do with that. Charlene, speak to accountability a little bit, because that is an important piece that's biblical and important to us.
Yeah, like John said, we have tremendous amount of trust, and you come in with a full bucket of trust in every area. Communication, we believe that you're capable. We've gone through the vetting process in terms of character. And so we absolutely believe that. We do have what I'll call accountability light. So quarterly reports, and we'll go over these things and other things, but newsletters that we're reading. So we're listening, we're paying attention, and in relationship, building trust. And we all know every day we build and break trust with ourselves. That's why we need repentance, we need grace. And so it's a relational interaction instead of a structural interaction. So, and then the last thing I'll say is I often describe Global Outreach as a conglomeration of missional entrepreneurs. You guys have the vision and the entrepreneurial thing to accomplish the bigger goal of the Great Commission. And we're here to help with that. And sometimes, that's a little more direct, and sometimes it's a lot less.
All right. Other questions?
I thought of something really quick too. I recently went through a training with a bunch of other organizations on how to build out your missionary kid program. We were the only one in that training that had the 100% promise. All the rest took 10, 15, 20%. And I think with that percentage comes higher expectations of what the mission and the organization is going to provide for you. I was trying to, I'm like, how can I create these kids programs when I have no money coming in unless I fundraise for it? And so I think that's the other thing is like this, Becky and I use this phrase, high responsibility, the high autonomy, you have high responsibility, both of those. So we have a limit to what we can offer, but we also know that God's kingdom is bigger and he has no limit. And so, things like we fundraised for this space to have a missionary kid classroom to do pre-field training. So it's neat. This 100% promise, I think, pushes us to see how we want to see the Holy Spirit working in our organization and with you guys too.
And I just want to say, speaking directly to Catherine, like we're a little different in that being at GSF, we kind of do have, we have our team directors that I actually had my quarterly meeting with Amy and this morning. So we kind of have like quarterly meetings of check-ins, but it's still based on relationship of like, how are you doing? How can we better serve you? How as a team can we work together? So there is that accountability and kind of having the team director actually on campus with you. So there are certain people designated for certain things.
Thanks, Blake.
Yep. Yeah, so within your team, you may have more structure. Hopefully, we do encourage our teams to care, to minister, but there may also be those who are within your team saying, you need to be doing this. But that's going to be more within your specific teams and along with accountability. Okay, other questions or comments or anything? So if you have a problem, what do you do? Who do you contact? Who you do that? If you have things, your regional care coordinators, you're going to want to contact Rhonda. You can also contact me. And even if it doesn't, like it may, eventually you're going to know more. You're going to know, oh, this needs to go to Marshall about home or HR. But you can contact me and I can point you to directions, or Rhonda, and we'll say, yeah, sure, we'll let that person know and get them back to you. We will try to respond to your needs. If we just love you to contact us, we do. We're going to try to reach out to you, but I'm really lousy at communication. I'm just going to be honest. I'm trying. I'm working. And so we love to hear from you guys. What's going on? That's why we do try to look at your newsletters. We encourage you to do them because we've seen that if you want to keep your finances up, this is going to be important for you. It's not just because we want to add responsibility. It's because we've seen this is what benefits our missionaries. So we want to hear from you. Are there any other concerns or anything that you guys have? So we got a full 10 minutes just to sit here and look at each other and practice John's silence. We could do it that way. Yeah. Oh, for now. Oh, there we go.
I can talk, but I just I can't have silence. So I just want to say that what I see as you guys explain, somehow how global works is that sense of what Jesus did for us. He came to save, he came to serve, he came to instruct, he came to, encourage. And of course, he disciplines us. He tells us what to do when we're not doing what he wants us to do and stuff like that. But I think that what you guys are doing is really trusting and believing in us, showing that God trusts and believes in us. So it's an image of, And the other thing that is interesting is that you could do all of this, if we give a percentage of our income and you are paid to do that, which is your job to do that, to take care of us, to provide for us the structure and everything else, but you don't. So it shows it's like going another mile we don't only care for you and take care of you and invest in you and want you to do what God called you, that we're going to fundraise, ourselves to enable you to do your ministry, which is my vision. I think I serve a lot of things and different things that could pay me, but they don't, because my heart is to serve them. But I see that in global, and I appreciate that. I'm glad that you guys have this heart and this calling. And I think it's very, very important, because most of organizations, they want to show their vision. Here's what we do, right? But you guys also have that, and it's here's what we do. We take care of God's people, the missionaries there. We take care of them so they can do it. So I think it's a big vision, and it's a humble vision in terms of not getting the credit, but saying, hey, our guys are doing this and this and this, and we're just here to serve them. So again, it encourages me, it impacts me, and I've been talking about global to different people this past few days because they ask about the training, and that's what I've been sharing. I mean, I'm so far happy.
Well, we definitely aren't perfect, but we do have a passion to serve God and serve you. One thing, keep in mind, when we are going to hopefully have someone come visit you from time to time. That's going to be our goal. When they do, we do not expect you to entertain us. We do not expect you to roll out the red carpet. We are going to want to pay for the meals. We're going to want to pay for our own lodging. We have been missionaries. We have been there. We have known what it's like. It's nice to have people visit you, but we also know the pressure of that, of trying to keep them entertained and take care of them when you've got a tight budget and things. So our goal, even then, we want to remove as much pressure as possible. We want to spend some time with you just to see how you're doing, do some debriefing, just talk through things, and hopefully encourage you. So that will continue to be our goal. And so Rhonda will do that. I'll be doing that. Some of the others will also hopefully get a chance to come visit you. That will be our goal. But indeed, we have to figure out ways of paying for that and getting that around up. Any other questions or comments? Some of you are very quiet. Alex, you have a very thoughtful look, but you haven't shared a whole lot, but that's okay.
I would like to say thank you about this like introduction to missionary care, because this is like revelation for me, to be honest. And especially the moment when you said that our job is not to tell you how to do on the field, but to encourage you and support you. The last 8 years I was following, and I was like being part of always like to tell me, you know, how to do on the field. And when it came the moment, me to tell like what is my calling, then it started like you know, to question myself: is this like my place? Is this where should I stay here? And when I see all of this, especially, you know, from the moment when you said like a mission and missionary organization, now about missionary care and all of these steps of master care, self-care, specialist care, and it's just confirmed me that I'm in the right place actually. And yeah, I'm so thankful to hear all of this. Yes.
It's exciting just for us when we hear your testimonies. It excites us to hear what God is doing in your lives and where God is, how he's been working. To even have a small part of that is exciting for us.